Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. In this video, we're going to do an experiment. With me, in front of me, we have my coffee, okay? We have, with the glass with the dots in it, is tap water. And then we've got a glass without the dots on it, which is spring water, right? Where I collected water from a spring, okay? And what we're going to do, how we're going to do this experiment, I've got a number of charts in front of me that are part of my healing systems that I have at Truly Holistic. And for each beverage, we're going to measure its auric field to begin with. We're also going to measure its flow percentage, and we'll talk about how important flow is when we get into that. And also, I've got a chart that is part of the broadcasting chart, which is called the Element Quantum Entanglement Chart. Now, entanglement means connection, and quantum means a quantum connection, right? And everything comes from the quantum originally, right? So, when we talk about that, we're talking about multidimensional, multiversal, which essentially means that, that beverage is more connected to its origins of where it comes from as an energy, as a consciousness. Now, there's a science out there called ORMUS, or it's often abbreviated as ORME, O-R-M-E, which is orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements, is very much that, is about a beverage that you have in this 3D world, but shifting in and out of dimensional states. So we're going to measure them all. And what we're going to do, measure them originally, then we're going to use products that you can get from Truly Holistic, right? And we are then going to test them all again through all those charts and see what readings we get, right? So let's start off with the coffee, right? My coffee I've got. And let's start off with the auric field measurement chart, okay, which is this chart, my quantum ascendance healing system. That's available, that I use this every day for clients, and it's available for you to purchase at my product store at trulyholistic.net/products for you to learn that system, which I go through with you through video calls where you learn the system and how to use it. Now, so let's measure it. So for the coffee, okay, so what is the auric field measurement of the coffee currently? Okay, so it's the lowest reading, which is 4 meters or below, or 13 foot. Now, a lot of people that might be watching this, they'll go, well, that's normally what our aura is, right? There's so many levels or layers of the aura, and it goes about 4 feet away from the body. Well, no. The aura is actually a measurement of how connected a substance or a person is to their consciousness, right? Their origins as a consciousness. And what facilitates that in regards to us, it's our heart. Okay, so the auric field is actually something that fluctuates depending on where our awareness sits, right? So if our awareness is up in the head and mind, thought, mentality, our auric field starts to collapse in. When we're more in the heart, it expands out. So that's how we apply this. So obviously a low reading for the coffee in regards to the auric field measurement. Now let's go and check the flow percentage of the coffee currently. Now, how flow is important? We've come to find it Truly Holistic, for illness to form, it requires a congestion, obstruction, or blockage of flow in the body, right? And of course, when we're talking about flow, we could compartmentalize the body and see it as, okay, you're losing your blood flow, right? Circulation is a term for that. Also, your lymph doesn't have that capacity to move, which then things accumulate in the body and become toxic. Quite often that's the case for like breast cancer things. Neurons communicating with other neurons through the nervous system. Congestion, obstruction in the digestive system then becomes a problem, right? People get sick if they are constipated and can't go to the toilet, but also obstruction of the bowel can lead to somebody dying. So when you look at every capacity of every aspect of our body, illness is formed by congestion, obstruction, or blockage of flow. Now, that all originates as energy flow, because everything it does originate from energy, right? Our body follows the state of the field, the energy field. So we're gonna, with that knowing, that understanding, we're gonna then measure the flow percentage of the coffee, because when we want to drink something and eat something, we're taking that thing on, and of course we want that not to be a substance that's going to create an obstacle to our flow. It's going to be in alignment to flow, right? Because we want to be in a state of flow, and our natural state is a state of being, which is, if we could simply say what that is to go with the flow, right? To be in the flow. So if we lead a life that's going with the flow, we present a state, a field of energy that the body will follow. So hence, every part of our body will then express and showcase that flow, and everything works well, health, wellness, and vitality in the body. So let's measure the flow of the coffee. So let's have a look. Okay, circle. So it's not too bad. It's about 55-60%. Okay, 55 and 60% in regards to flow. Now, the last chart we're going to measure with it is, as I say, the element quantum entanglement chart, right, which is part of the broadcasting system, which is another system you can learn and buy it, and you learn how to use, which is to realize that, we get sustenance. The body requires sustenance. We might see that through food to get elements, minerals, vitamins, phytonutrients. We might see that as, essential oils, crystal energy, supplementation, digestive enzymes, hormone replacement therapy, whatever the body needs. But really the baseline of all of that is an energy signature, right? So we can bypass the middleman, so to speak, go straight to broadcasting that energy signature into the part of the body that we need, coupled with a broadcasting tool like this one, or broadcast into a glass of water or into our plate of food. So we add those nutrients or add those things that we require. That's what that system's about. Now, this is kind of the advanced chart in that system, because we're starting to now, spread our wings a little bit and look at, because every element on the periodic table of the elements, or everything we note in any of those charts that make up the broadcasting systems, we would call substance of sustenance. It's all connected to the quantum, which means there are variants or versions of themselves over multiple dimensions and realities, right? So, we might be just taking the magnesium that's bound to this reality, but we can learn to take the magnesium that's bound to a multiple realities, right? Wow, we're just going to another level now, right, in regards to that. And of course, it all connects to this map, which we call the Ascension map, which is a detailed illustration of what you are over a multiverse, over multiple realities. And as I said many times, all my modalities, my systems, my products, my tools, all come back to this, because this is pivotal to know and understand. Because, hey, when you completely know what this is all about, this map, then you completely know about what you are and why you're here and the purpose of everything. Reality itself, how it's forged, everything, right? So you're living a life in a pocket of certainty all the time. There's no aspect of uncertainty, so hence there's no fear. All you're experiencing is love, peace, joy, and happiness. And that's what we're all looking for. Okay, so that's enough of the spiel about the charts and about that. Let's ask on the element quantum entanglement chart, where is this coffee currently in regards to what it facilitates? And of course, it's going just to generation 3. Now, the word generation means reality, or can mean universe, and 3 is the one here, right? So every element, mineral, every aspect of sustenance in this coffee is bound to its, it's got a ceiling. Can only be to the highest potential of what it is in this reality. But as I say, the origin of everything that's in here is not something that's just bound to one reality, right? So this is where we really take things to a new level, because at Truly Holistic, we're not about limitation. We're not about ceilings. We're about connecting into that expansiveness, that infinite nature, because that's what we are, authentically and infinitely. So we've got a reading now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to now bring in, we're going to bring in a coaster. We call this a light coaster. And what we call light technology at Truly Holistic is, it's very much the same as, excuse me, Tensor technology. The only difference is we're using a different anchor to facilitate those energetics. Here, we're using what's called Tensor technology, where copper wire is bent back on itself, then put through a drill bit, which spins, right, creates that vortex that turns the wire to this twisted form. And then we cut it to a specific measurement, which is in Tensor technology called a qubit measurement, which is a sacred measurement that facilitates certain frequencies. And then I just weld it together, create a loop and a full circle, which creates that tensor field, right? And it also creates that 0 point energy that sits in the place where you can't see anything, right? So therefore, light's coming out both ends, right? So these are heart-based tools. These are quantum-based tools. So it's important to note that. So that's how we anchor it through Tensor. But we found another way to anchor those energetics in, because I'm connected to the etheric templates of where they come from. And I anchored it into the crystal powders that's encapsulated in this mold that's encapsulated in resin. You can see the beautiful, if I show it like that, you can see the beautiful tree on there, right? Because why we picked that was, again, coming back to this map, your consciousness is depicted as a tree, right? That's very important to note as well. So we're going to use this, and I'm going to place the coffee on it. Now, a question people might ask, how long do I keep my coffee on there? Well, the longer you keep it on there, the more it will expand its field and connect into more of itself. But, for the sake of this video, hey, we're not wanting it to go over hours. We're going to just put it on there and leave it there for 30 seconds to a minute, and then we're going to go back and reassess through those charts again. And we're going to see a difference, because when it comes to quantum energy, right, where everything comes from, there's no such thing as space-time there. There's no such thing as time there. So things happen immediately. It's just through, when it permeates through the layers to, what's above that, the particle layer, the atomic level layer, and then the cellular level, and beyond, it permeates through those layers. So sometimes it does take a bit of time to gain that traction into this 3D world and how we perceive it. But it's going to happen straight away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that straight on there. And now I'm going to sit that on the table, sitting on that coaster. And then we are going to then check those measurements again, right? So what did we get initially? We got that it was the lowest auric field measure of at least 4 meters or 13 feet or below. And then when we went to the flow, it was around about 55-60%. And then element quantum entangle chart was, everything was bound just to this reality, which we call generation 3. So what we are going to do a little bit later, because we've got the water is there to test as well. We've got the water ring. So this is specifically connected to bringing through the consciousness of water through. So of course we're going to use that with the water, but you could also use the coaster, because the coaster has the energetic of the water element, which this ring is an anchor for in the coaster as well. So, that's why we created the two options. Some people like the coaster look, they like the whole crystal energy thing. Some people like the copper and the Tensor technology. So we kind of give people the opportunity to choose, have more choices. Now, where this one comes in, this comes with the broadcasting tool, because this is a broadcasting tool. This is wonderful to use your intention with, right? So if you want vitamin C in your coffee, or vitamin C in your drink, or you want to cleanse your liver, right? And you know that milk thistle's a great herb for the liver to cleanse, you can just write that intention note or verbalize the intention through the ring and place the ring right over the liver, and then it will broadcast the energy, the medicine of that herb straight to the liver, start cleansing it. Or broadcast whatever mineral, vitamin, whatever you need in a substance, whether it's a plate of food, water, or your coffee, or your beer or wine, right? Because even though we don't have an alcoholic beverage yet, same applies, with a glass of wine, slim spilling. who originally brought Tensor technology to the masses, right? For people to know in the early 90s. Yes, it took a bit to gain some traction, but he used Tensor technology on wine, and he always used to say, get a cheap bottle of wine and make it a pristine wine just through using this technology, because you're bringing through more of itself, right? As energy, it's consciousness, and it's going to change how it tastes, the texture of it, how hydrating it is. And that's why we get so much feedback about the water ring and the coasters in regards to how it restructures their water. Immediately they say, wow, to start off with, and say, wow, it does. It changes the water. It's more hydrating. The texture, the taste, all changes. So same with the coffee, any beverage that you use it. Anyway, that's long enough now. We're going to take it off the coaster. And let's measure, right? So we're going to do the auric field chart, and let's measure what the coffee is now, please. Now, you can see when I'm dowsing, my body goes into it because I use feel as a discernment, which is where I come from the heart, because the heart's all about expansion. The mind is all about limitation. So when we're wanting to get quick answers, we're wanting to really get to the cause, to the effect. When I'm working with clients and health problems, we don't want a discernment that's all about limiting my perspective or perception or opportunity to heal this person. We want an expansive, kind of infinite possibility, space being held to help that person in that session. So let's have a look. It's definitely expanded. So let's have a look. Wow. Now it's now reading up to 30 kilometers, 18.64 miles. That's its field now. Right? We went from 4 meters, 13 feet, to now 30 kilometers, or just over 18 miles. Right? Why is that? As I said, these products anchor in a connection to what is in this 3D world, to be able to connect into more of itself, or what it originally is, and which comes from the quantum. And many people might perceive this as, might perceive this as we're activating the DNA within everything that makes up that coffee. All right. Now, how does DNA connect into all this when we're talking about energy? And more importantly, flow, which we're going to get to the next chart. When we look at the structure of DNA, right, it's a helical structure with nucleotides in the middle. Now the strands of DNA, that helical structure, a helix is a vortex, and vortex is the form or geometry is flow, right? So realize that when it comes to DNA, right, that helical structure is the carrier wave that is carrying those energetics inside it we call nucleotides. Okay. Now just simply see that as coding, right? So what are these products about? What are they doing? They're anchoring in more energetics. Now energetics is genetics of what is perceived as genetics and DNA. Now, what do they bring? They bring more energetics, but what also do they bring? And why we're going to use the next chart? More flow. Why? Because the carrier wave, what presents those energetics, is a vortex flow. So is it different to DNA? No, it's the same. It's just two different perspectives of what we believe DNA is. This whole complicated aspect of how DNA is perceived is all mind, thought, mentality. It's not complex at all. The way we're seeing it here in this video is a perspective from the heart, not from the mind, not out of mentality, not out of thought, but connecting simply to what it is. And it's simple. It's not complex. Okay, so let's go to the next chart. Excuse me. I think I need a drink. Okay. And what I find with my coffee as well, because I sit this on every morning, right? When I'm getting ready for sessions with my client for the day. And it sustains me for hours. I sometimes forget to eat, right? And what is that saying? My body is getting all the energy, right? The energetics and the flow that it requires and needs, right? As the human, we might perceive that as needing breakfast and lunch. But really, what are we getting from the food that we eat? Because the physical substance of the food, we don't hold on to that in the body. It goes in one end and comes out the other. So it's the unseen aspects or properties we call nutrients, elements, vitamins, minerals that are in that food. The body wants to take that. Now, that's energetics. Okay. Now, when you learn to use these products on your coffee, on your water, on your food, on you, then you realize you're more self-sufficient in sustaining yourself because you're bringing through the baseline foundation of what we perceive as elements, minerals, vitamins, nutrients that there are. Because this is what we're talking about here. So let's test the flow now, right? So the flow, what? 55, 60% before in regards to the coffee. Let's have a look now. Okay, circle it. So it's already gone up to 85%, right? So there's been an improvement already. And that will keep improving because we've enabled that connection. If we sit that coffee on that coaster for longer, that percentage is just going to improve, right? So therefore, when we drink that coffee, it's not becoming an obstruction or congestion to our bodily functions that depend and rely on flow. It's going to align with it, right? So that's pretty cool. Now this is the interesting one. Let's look at the element quantum entanglement chart now, right? Because as I say, we connected that coffee into more of itself that goes beyond this reality, right? Which we'd say now has ormus in it, right? So let's have a look. What's generations now? And it says all of them. Now that doesn't surprise me, and I'll explain why. And it comes back to this. Okay. Now these numbers and the name above it, it says generation, and it might be the other way around as you're looking on the camera. It's generation. And 3, white's in green because this is Earth. This is where you are. Okay? Now, these are the other realities. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Right? And what we've got here is this is the Earth element, the air element, the water element, or what we call as the qubits, activation, gateway, ascension. Now, the etheric template or energetics we place in the coasters is that, and that. So the earth, air, and water elements. Activation, gateway, and ascension qubits. So when it says that now, the coffee now, and everything that's in it is a representation of not just this reality, but all of it, it makes sense, right? Because this is what this product facilitates. Cool, right? It's not complex, simple, right? This is what truly holistics here about. It's about, we work a lot with quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and all these sorts of things, DNA, genetics, epigenetics, and all that. But it's a realization that all that stuff is only complicated because the human uses mind, thought, mentality to try and interpret it. And a lot of the times they're misinterpreting it. They're making it more complicated than it has to be. So the general public, the general folk, don't know anything about it. Where when we connect into the heart, we discern from where we come from, because we don't come from there. Everything's laid out in a more simplistic way that allows us to understand more. And this is very important. I always say to my clients in sessions, if you can understand why you're experiencing what you're experiencing more, that will result in healing in itself, because we live in a world at the moment, we've got infinite sources of information, predominantly thank you to the internet. But humanity's more conflicted and confused than they've ever have been. And it's not because we need more sources of information. It's because it still lacks an understanding and knowing of what it means and what it represents. So this is what we provide at Truly Holistic. And this is why these products, these healing systems are unbelievable and incredible. There's no ceiling to them. And you will learn more about yourself, learn more about reality as you utilize them. They're wonderful. Let's move on to the water. Now I can sip away at my coffee as we talk about it. So, excuse me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the tap water. Okay, and we're just going to test it by itself. Now, there's a big difference between tap water and spring water. Now, this is, when we talk about, we were talking about sustenance before, right? And often, and everyone knows this, right? That, hey, we can go weeks without food. We can go only days without water. We can only go minutes without breathing. So, why, when someone's dealing with a health problem, other than going and seeing their doctor, why do they change their diet? Why is that the first step? When really, water's more important, right? So there's this aspect of quality of the ingredients and the products and things that we eat, right? Food. But a lot of the times those same people aren't getting to the point where they're looking at water in the same way, in a qualitative difference. They'll be at that point where it's quantitative, right? We've got to get 8 glasses of water in. But where's the qualitative difference? And there's a huge qualitative difference when it comes to tap water and spring water. And the baseline readings we're going to get from these charts is going to showcase that. I'm pretty sure. So let's get into it. So we're going to start with the tap water. And with the tap water, we will start with the auric field chart. All right? Let's have a look. So the tap water here. You got to remember the tap water is a processed water, right? How do we look at anything processed? Whether it's our food supply, right? So a lot of the times with water, right, the processing is removing contaminants out of the water. You got to remember that water, even though physical contaminants can be removed, the memory of that energetic imprint, because everything's energy at its baseline, is still in the water. And when you drink that water, you take that on. Okay. A perfect example of this for me is, I worked in modern medicine for 12 years in a hospital setting, right? And we had people that would get amputations. And people, I'm sure you come across people that are amputees, right? And they're, below knee, their leg's gone, but they can still feel their feet. It's like their feet are still there. Their toes are still there, right? It's a clear example that, a lot of what we're feeling, it's not about the physical, it's about the energy. In fact, the body is a discernment to tell us what's happening in that field, because everything originates in the field. And we're not infinitely, authentically the body. This is why when we leave this place, the body doesn't go with us, right? So, everything we talk about truly holistic is based around about really what you are, and what you infinitely, authentically are, which is energy, which is consciousness, and that's what we're working on now. So what is the auric field measurement of the tap water, please? Again, that lowest reading, 4 meters, about 4 meters or below, 4 meters or 13 feet, okay? So let's check. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. So we're going to go to the flow percentage chart. And why I'm saying it's an interesting thing is because in the physical world, what teaches us more about flow? What's the most physical embodiment of flow we can get? And that's water. All right, that's water. And when you look at water in nature, right, when water's always looking for the path of least resistance. So when water is moving faster, right, than a stream, a river, the water is cleaner, right? Why is it cleaner? Because what makes it flow, move, is that vortex, right? We've connected that to that helical structure of DNA. And when there's more of a vortex, right, more of a spin rate, it provides a self-regulating process that keeps that substance clean. Right, a vortex, right? This is why I said before, right, why illness is formed when we lose flow, right? There's a congestion, obstruction, or blockage to our flow. Okay, that's why. Right. So when we present more energy flow, we present more of that vortex. which means we live a life where we're providing the state, the environment for our body to self-cleanse itself without you needing to do anything to do it, to provide that. Doesn't that sound much easier? But as a human, we're up here and we're like, no, we've got to do something, we've got to do. But the doing is you getting in the way, you becoming an obstruction of your own flow. It's incredible. But anyway, let's get into it. So what's the flow percentage of this tap water, please? Yeah, so it's not that great. It's around about like the coffee. It's about 55, 60%. And I really thought, it would be higher than the coffee, right? So that's interesting. It also relates to, because my coffee was with coconut milk, and of course with the coconut milk, a big portion of that product is water. And that would tell me that's probably tap water they're using in that, right? A lot of products are using not the best water. Now, so that's interesting. So let's go to the element quantum entanglement chart. What generation is that water connected to? Only this one, right? So if we bring that map up, only that one, none of the rest, right? And remember the origin, the consciousness of water, its true state is down here. And it can't connect to it, right? It's like a human. Have you heard the expression, a lost soul? That's what that is. You not connected to what you are. Right? Okay. You're not going to get the best out of that person. You're not going to get the best out of that water. Right? You could drink tons of that water and still be dehydrated. Let's just say that. Right? Where you can get a water that when you use these products and get restructured, you drink less and you're more hydrated. Right. Let's use now the water ring on it. So what I'm going to do, simply just place it under the water, okay? So I'm just going to sit that down now, okay? And, again, as I say, people ask me, how long do we do that for? Well, what I say to people when they buy that water ring to begin with, which again is on my product store, trulyholistic.net/products/. I say to them, hey, at nighttime, before you go to bed, pour 2 glasses of water, pour one of the Tensor ring under one of them and leave them overnight. In the morning, try either ring and you'll notice a massive difference in texture and taste. How hydrating it feels, right? It doesn't just go into your tummy and make you feel heavy like you're a water bottle. You can feel it being absorbed at the back of your throat, right, as you drink it. It's nourishing. You can feel it. And that might be 6, 7, 8 hours, right, that you've done that overnight. Now, what we've found with that water ring is generally it gets to its maximum flow percentage, hydration, connected to its consciousness, usually within 3 days. You probably won't go any further than that. But as I said, within seconds, when you're doing that at the quantum level, it's making that quantum entanglement connection. Again, that word entanglement means connection. So it's connecting to its origin of it as a consciousness, right? All the way down here. And it's just about permeating through those levels, right? From particle level that sits above frequency, right? Just the waveform, which is at quantum. And then the next level up, atomic, and then cellular. And then we start to then feel it and experience it on the physical. Longer the better. But if you're just going to sit it on there for a few seconds, better than not doing it, if you understand what I mean. Right, that's long enough. So we're going to take that water off there now. And let's test it. All right. So what is now the auric field measurement of that water that's been sitting on the water ring, the tap water, please? Okay, so again, we're getting this very much the same reading we did with the coffee. And that's gone up to 30 kilometers or about 18 and a half miles. Incredible, man. Incredible. Right? And that's, again, through connecting to, because this water ring brings through the water element. And as I showed there on the Ascension map charts, all the way down here, we're up here, right? Right? So let's now measure its flow. What's the flow now of that tap water? Circle, please. Okay, so now it's gone from 55 to 60%, and it's close to, it's at 90% now. 90%, right? So now when you take that tap water, now that's more aligned with your natural state to keep things in flow, right? What's that? The viscosity of blood, which is the thickness of the blood or thinness of the blood. You want your blood thin, because it means that the flow, the blood flow is able to get oxygen, nutrients to your tissues, right? It's also that vortex is what keeps your arteries clean. What takes someone out, with cardiovascular disease, a heart attack? Why? An obstruction of an artery and not getting the blood and the oxygen supply to the blood, to the heart muscle, right? And what's the number one killer of humans? Cardiovascular disease, right? Now, when I drink it now, I can still, slight texture change, but the taste is the same. And as I say, why the taste is the same? Because it hasn't been on that water ring for long enough. As I say, it's connected all the way at the quantum, but it needs to permeate through those layers, and it takes a bit of time that once it gets to the cellular level, on this 3D level, that we can perceive that difference, even though on an energetic level, it is changing, okay? Now let's check this. The element quantum entanglement chart. Now and it's going to all of them. Makes sense, right? Because it's connecting to here, which includes all generations, all realities, all universes. All right, so you're essentially drinking everything that's in that water is now in its ormus form, or what we call orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. So that word, right, orbitally, so they're talking about atoms, right? Because it says monoatomic, right? There's the M in that abbreviated word. Now, R, rearranged, right? So it's changing its form. And where form begins is on the atomic level, right? Which is, you got particle, and then you got frequency, which is the quantum level. That's where energy is, that's where it's formless. There's no form. And as it goes through the layer, and remember, we're coming into this 3D physical world where everything is form, right? So that's what that's all about. Okay, so let's go to the last one. Spring water, right? Beautiful. Love spring water. Now, there's a website, I'm pretty sure it's called findaspring.com or findaspring.org. Don't know which one it is, org or com. And it's a database of where you are in the world, and it showcases where springs are if you want to go and collect your own water. Now, if you can't find somewhere close, then these are the products you want to look for, right? Getting a water ring. And we make this in bigger sizes if you want to incorporate for a pitcher of water, a jug of water, or a tank of water. But it's very inexpensive. Same with the coasters. We make this coaster, but we also make charging plates, which are bigger than this as well, for like a plate of food and those sorts of things. Go and check it out in my product store. So let's have a look now, right? We're going to test what the spring water is before we use any product on it. And we'll start with... Now, the interesting thing about spring water is we're talking about a water that hasn't been influenced for the most part by a human. Hasn't gone through a processing unit. Well, the only processing unit it's gone through is Earth itself, right? And if it's levitating itself up to the surface, it's using all the layers of the crust of the Earth as its water filtration of that water, right? And this is where every water filtration system originally got the idea. It tried to mimic what the Earth does with it. Of course, it doesn't do it as well. But that water's, it's going against gravity, levitating up. And, the laws of, with thermodynamics and science is that anything that goes against gravity will cause friction and cause heat. But these springs, these cold springs, are coming up with ice cold water, which is bypassing the laws of physics. So it's pretty cool stuff. But let's measure what the auric field of that water is. Yeah, I expected it to be pretty good by itself already. So I'm just going to have a look. But with these products, we can make it even better. So it's starting from 15 kilometers, 9.32 miles, just to begin with, without any product being applied to it yet. But of course, we can make that even more expansive, right? On this auric, just to let you know, on this auric field measurement chart, the biggest reading doesn't go any further than this on this chart. It's 10,000 kilometers, and I'm beyond that. My auric field is beyond that, right? Because I've mastered my ability to open my heart and facilitate what I am from the quantum. And this is why I do all these videos, to share this with you, because, it transforms your life and everything around it. It's incredible. Okay. So anyway, 15 kilometers, 9.32 miles. Let's go to the flow chart. What is the flow percentage of the spring water? Circle it. And remember, the other two were about 55-60% to begin with, right? So which one? So without doing anything, spring water, 90%. 90%. Right? Which is nearly a double than the other two. Okay. Right. Now, the consciousness of water is hydrogen, right? Hydro meaning water, genesis of water, right? It's within the name. And it's a big thing at the moment, right? Hydrogen, adding hydrogen to water. Well, when you connect your water, let's say get spring water, it's more connected to itself, its origin is a consciousness, it's going to have more hydrogen in it, automatically. But when you use these products on it, it's also by connecting into more of its consciousness, it's facilitating more of that hydrogen into the water too. Okay? Right. So let's go to now the quantum entanglement chart in regards to this. This is going to be interesting because this is sourced within this reality, right? We're not using any quantum-based tools on it yet, right? Spring water. What element is it connected to? Circle. So is it, I'm just going to make sure of this. Okay. So what it's saying is it's connected to a few other generations of itself. So if we bring this up, it's connected to here, 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 and here, but these two are missing. Right, so it's pretty good though. It's not all the way back to its origin, but it's pretty close. A lot closer than tap water, right? So let's now take the water ring and sit it under the spring water. I hope you're really enjoying this video. I know it's getting pretty lengthy, but I've always wanted to do a demonstration of this because, as I say, this is transformational. Now, because that spring water is a lot more connected to itself, right? Its consciousness, what we refer to as our soul, right? It's not going to take as long on that ring for it to, it's very, if something's more connected to itself, the more allowing it is of change, more allowing of taking on more of itself, right? And it's the same thing when something's been so disconnected from what you are, right? And we see this as the collective of humanity, which is very much mind-forged, not connected to what they are. They're very resistant to actually connecting to what they are, right? So this is why when we do healing sessions, the most resistant life form on this planet is a human. Why? Because they're the most mind-orientated life form there is. Okay? So when we're, even if we look at our domesticated cats or dogs, they are more willing and allowing. They're more connected to their instinctual processes, which is their origin, not the conditioning, like the human. Okay? So when we took working with substances like water and things like that, you know, there's hardly any resistance. But with the human and the way that our belief structure and the way we're taught to perceive things, that becomes the obstacle in our way majority of the times when we are dealing with health problems. Anyway, let's take it off that ring now and let's measure it again. What's the auric? So it was pretty high before, right? It was 15 kilometers just on its own. What, 9.32 miles, what is it now? Wow. It's real, and that didn't take long. Let's have a look. It's gone to 5,000 kilometers. 5,000 kilometers. Now, what does this mean? As I said, right, I can sit this, and I don't drink my coffee straight away. I don't even care if it goes cold. It's often sitting on that for hours on that coaster. Hours. And I'm sipping away on that. And I'm forgetting about food. I'm forgetting about any form of sustenance I need because I'm getting it. Right? On top of me, got my heart open, facilitating more of myself. You imagine, coupled that with a water that's bringing through everything of itself. Right? A lot of the times our health problems is not because we're missing something, we need to add another thing in. It's because we're accumulated. We're in an accumulating state. We've stored so much stuff, which means things sitting in our body for too long becomes toxic. We need to let go of stuff. We need more flow. So when we provide and apply these tools like a coaster, a water ring, to our products, like whatever you're doing right now, food or drink, don't get into too much of the specifics of that's better than that. No, just bring through more of itself, bring through its whole instead of taking on its parts. It's going to nourish you. Okay. Right, let's go to now the flow chart. Right, it was already 90%, now it's 100. Only took seconds with spring water. It's going to take longer for tap water because why tap water is completely disconnected from what it is as a consciousness. Its source, its origin. Where spring water is much closer to it. Okay, let's go to the quantum entanglement chart. Right, so it was already connected to